almost 40 players have picked up a new position on keeper. That is the big headline in the first in-season positional change announcement. We have got an absolute bucket load of players to share with you. Who are they? What I can tell you is the new initiative of a triple position player has been activated. We have 3 guys that now can be played across 3 different lines, and some players that historically that have been only really viewed as midfielders for us, that have been knocking out hundreds at least once in a year over their career. We're about to get them to gain defender and in some case forward status. A lot of changes are about to hit the game. As you're watching this, they're already in effect on the keeper platform. Who are the players that have got it, and how big of an impact could it make to your side and really your keeper league? We're going to talk about that on this episode. Look, before I get you there, do want to walk you through some of the positional change process. More not to delay the inevitable of telling you who gets it, but rather to qualify and quantify for you what the selection process is for keeper, to help you understand why certain players gained it and others didn't. The good news is this is not the last time you and I are going to hang out this season, because keeper has multiple in-season positional changes. It's at the ends of round 3, ta-da, where we are, round 6, 9, 12, 15, and 18. So a lot of those will keep projecting who we think gets it, like we saw on the channel just a few days ago, as well as this, the official announcement episodes from keeper, or on behalf of keeper is probably a better phrase. The other thing, for a player to gain a positional status, they need to spend a minimum of 50% in this new position. So it's a little higher threshold than what you see in others for them to change that. And of course, players that can gain triple position status, it is a setting that is enabled, as to is choosing whether or not you go with the industry positions or you go with keepers. You've got that capacity to do that already on the keeper platform, but just a reminder, you've already got, before these positions landed, an additional 12 already sitting in keeper. So, you know, Ollie Dempsey owners probably don't want him to go back to pure mid status, for example. So what do we need to do? This is the process that the guys at keeper run through. The first is they check the current position. So they use the AFL website grading to really inform the positions that they have. And of course, the AFL website is regularly updated. And in there, they can really only have one of a number of positions. So defender, keeper call that a key position defender, or a defender. It's one of those two. Rucks are rucks, mids are mids, mid forwards are mid forwards, medium forwards are forwards, and key position forwards are listed on the AFL website as forward. But for those of you psychopaths playing with a key position or a key forward position on your field, that sits in there. Then what they do is they compare that to the existing fantasy positions that are there. So they use their own judgment. They use a bunch of different determinations. They look at the centre bounce stats. They look at statistics. They look at heat maps. They look at the eye test. And then what they do on top of that is they remove players with limited data threads. So you can't just have played a game in that spot. Really, you need to play at least 3 of the club's last 5 games in that position to be eligible for change. And then, of course, they go and apply the position changes. That's how they get there. So there's a full article that Keeper have put out that I've linked in the description of this episode to, if you want to go see it. So that, again, whether or not you're like, nah, I can't believe that guy got it, or on the other side, you're like, how did they miss this guy? Look, all those details about the article is there. And again, the beauty is with positional changes now every 3 weeks for the better part of the next 4 months, is if a player you think was a criminal miss from keeper, shouldn't be too far away from landing it. Do you want to hear the player positions? All right, let's go. I've stretched it out and given context enough for you. Here are the new defenders. We have got a ton of them. Bailey Williams, Caleb Daniel, Connor Stone, Dylan Shield, Finn O'Sullivan, Harley Gallagher, Jack Bowes, Jasper Fletcher, Josh Dacos, Ollie Hollins, Rory Laird, Ryan Burns, Ryan Marich, Sam Wicks, Mark Blixarves, Reef McInnes, Anthony Caminiti, Harrison Petty, and Jack Silvani. These are all the guys that have picked up defensive status. It is a huge wad of names that have landed for us right at the top of the gate. There's some massively relevant ones. First, you probably should talk about Rory Laird. He hasn't been as big as we know historically he has, but he drops a ton for us last week. I think right now he's currently, with this new position, inside the top 10 averaging defenders on the keeper platform, and I expect that's where he's going to stay. Whether you drafted him on your single season league or you're a keeper or a dynasty owner, this is really returning value for you now. It was telegraphed for us in the preseason, but it's absolutely a reality. To be able to get a 90s guy that could knock 100 now into your defense, man, this could be D1 for a lot of coaches. It could skinny up your midfield too. So let's see how that hands out. But regardless, that's a huge gain. Josh Dacos is in a very similar vein. While probably not as high averaging outlet, he is that sort of 90 defender now that we expected him to gain it, and he's picked it up too, which is helpful. Both Marich and Daniel, two of the positions that have now got triple position eligibility. I think Daniel shouldn't be a shock to any of us whatsoever. That was coming from a mile away. That the moment TPP was announced as an initiative from the guys at Keeper, we fully expected him to pick it up, and he's absolutely done that, which makes a total bit of sense. In deeper draft leagues, or those that maybe not jump out the page, look, I think Dylan Shield, I think he scraped in. From my perspective, more so because while the data was pretty clear for the first couple of weeks of the year, he did move up a little bit higher and play through the midfield just this week gone. I think that's positive for owners too, because he wasn't really scoring great for you. And as a midfielder, it wasn't fieldable. As a defender, it was your last on field, depending on the depth of your side. At least now, if he's going to stay playing in the mid and have this new positional status on keeper, that's almost the dream scenario. So handy for owners. I don't think it's a shock that he's got it. I thought, though, that maybe they might have just waited to the next round, but I understand why they've made that decision. Look, don't sleep on the addition of a Mark Blixarves getting defender status. For him to be able to now play through your midfield, your ruck, and your defender line, this is awesome coverage. Not only if you're just playing through the bye rounds, but just in general, if you're stuck with 65 sort of territory defender, Mark's shown us the capacity to pop tons and give us multiple 80s in a year. So it might not be a preferred option, but that versatility that now lands in your side, I think that's helpful. Ollie Hollands becomes fieldable now, depending on the league size. Don't sleep on Jasper Fletcher or Jack Bowes as ins. I think they're handy. And for keeper and dynasty owners, the Finn O'Sullivan adding of defensive status, I think is really critically helpful. Look, there's others that are good, like Silvani's going to be handy for you. Bailey Williams is relatively handy for you. I think they've done a big job at adding a lot of names in, but there's a ton of them that are relevant and a ton that will help us more at the bottom end of it as well. Who are the new mids? Let's light them up. There's a decent number of them, but never mids really change a player's value too much. It just adds versatility. Colby McKercher, James Trezise, Joel Frazier, Ollie Florence, Sam Davidson, Tyrell Dua, and Robert Hanson Jr. all add midfield status to their existing either defender or forward status. Look, Frazier and McKercher are probably the two most popular owned. Davidson, coming off the back of his 120 last week, sits in that conversation now too. Handy additions for squad flexibility, for covering donuts, late changes, however you want to be able to look at it, it's handy. But does a player gain relevance by adding midfield status? Rarely, let's be honest. It's the defender ad, it's the forward ad, and the ruck ad that we do get in this episode as well. Let's talk about the defender done, the mid done. Let's work our way through the line. Let's talk about the ruck that's coming in. Da-da-da-da. No surprise, Sam De Koning. He's been the number one ruck choice for the Cats for the first 3 rounds of the year. Whether that will hold, we wait and see. But again, much like Blixarves, this is a handy option for you where the value has been that he's been playing as a ruck in our defensive position. But all it takes is your current on-field ruck to drop out. And unless you're playing in a really shallow league of options, You're like, oh no. I'm now hoping Mark Pitternet gets named. I'm picking whichever West Coast Eagle ruck is named, and they're my ruck. At least now, with a Sam De Koning picking up ruck status, you've got the option and the outlet. Let's wait and see exactly how that lands through there. But one ruck has been added to the game. And then the forwards. Would you like to know? There's a name that's in here that could be a game changer for some coaches that are just struggling with their forward line. Let's line them up. Who have we got for you? Blake Hardwick, Braden Campbell, Harry Sharp, Jack Henderson, Murphy Reed, Sam Layla, Tom Hanley, Nick Martin, ladies and gentlemen. He adds forward status, as too does Patrick Dangerfield, Stephen Cornelio, Brody Kemp, and the Sydney Swan, Tom McCartan. Let's talk about Nick Martin right out of the gate. If you were to look at his pure positional status in a clean slate, I said this on our forecast or on my predictions episode that I thought Nick could have been a gaining mid and forward status in the same singular position because he's playing as a mid forward, has nothing to do with a defender. Clearly, keeper have made the decision based on the data points that forward is the more primary position he's currently based in, and they've just opted to only award a single position in a positional change, which I totally understand. He's not scoring amazing. He's also not scoring terribly. I think he's quite indicative of how his team is going. But the beauty is what you've got here is a guy that has knocked the doors of 110 before historically, albeit in a line and in a position that he doesn't have right now. But he's back now to the role that he almost started in, which is a high half forward pushing up the ground. Depending on the forwards, if you didn't get the likes of a Rankin, a Smith, a McRae, or a Daniel, you're probably not loving your F1 right now. So to get a Nick Martin, while it's an underwhelming D1 you've probably got, and that's maybe harsher phrase to say underwhelming, unders what he did last year, you might have gained a pretty important forward. And if you've stocked deep and wide in your defensive status in your existing league, this could really shape things up nicely for you. Push that worst forward off field. If your worst defender is 10, 15 points better than your worst defender, man, just like that, you've improved your side. You haven't had to do a darn thing about it. So I think that's a really helpful and handy addition for coaches. Reed and Lawler, Murphy Reed that is, and Sam Lawler, are handy for keeper and dynasty league coaches, especially really deep leagues. I think it's a right position that both of these guys got. They're probably not fieldable options for you week in, week out, but they have shown they've got some scoring potential over quarters. We know that over a period of time, they're going to turn out to be really nice keeper options for us. So I do like that. Single seasoners, you're probably not going there. Certainly Shiva coaches, maybe if you're desperate, you might hit that up. And then probably the other two we got to talk about. Arguably, it might have saved them from being delisted out of your keeper team, and that is Stephen Cornelio and Patrick Dangerfield. Look, Danger was okay on the weekend. He moved back into the mid, but Cogs has just been an absolute shell of himself, and it's a combination of building back after an injured preseason and then just not getting the midfield opportunity. It's how he's picked up forward status. He's not been fieldable for the year, and he might not even be fieldable in your forward line. But at least he's someone you can keep now in your team on the intent and hope is more closer phrase I'd like to use, that he might be able to get back into some of this midfield mix. It looks pretty tight. It's Kelly, it's Green, it's Callahan, it's Bedford. It's not too much else that Kingsley's running through there. But if an injury creates an opportunity for Cogs, this could be handy. So I think he saved himself from getting thrown to the waivers and the player pool because he was destined for it without it. Danger, probably similar. He's going to give you some games. It's how he's picked up forward status, like the first 2 rounds, heavily forward through these. Always had a forward mix to his game, but almost exclusively in contrast to what it normally was for him. He's done enough in keeper's eyes to get it. I think if he can get back to a more even midfield forward split, he becomes fieldable for you on the keeper platform in your draft side. But he's going to dish up some 50s and 60s with games that are heavily more forward as opposed to games like against Brisbane, which are very heavily more mid. They're probably the big changes. Look, I don't hate the Blake Hardwick one. I think that might be okay for some leagues, again, depending on the depth. The others, I think, are right positional changes, but might not help your keeper side. And so that's it. Those are the 39 players that have changed positions. Were there some guys you thought that were lucky to get it? I'd love to know. Comment below and let me know who you thought, just by the skin of their teeth, got themselves on the right side of luck to get it. Who did you think was unlucky to miss out? Got to be honest, thought Levi Ashcroft was an almost certainty, but clearly in some of the data metrics that Keeper have shared that I ran through at the top of this episode, made the decision to go, you know what, let's just wait and we'll make that call. And that's the big reminder. If the player you were banking on or hoping on picking up status, remember, we're just 3 weeks away from it happening again. And so if the role that you are adamant the player has, the gang at Keeper will pick that up and make sure that it'll be rectified and added in round 6, if that is in true a valid point. If you want to, again, go back and understand their positional process, their selection criteria, I've dropped the article in the episode for you to be able to go and read that to see pretty transparently how they go about making those decisions. Grammar much, MJ. Anyway, that's it. Those are the 39 players that have gained positions. I hope you enjoyed it. They're in the game, effective immediately. If any of the players are currently sitting in the player pool, they've also been activated now where you need to waiver wire claim for them. You can't just go and grab them free off the player pool. Is if you want them, you've got to put that waiver priority in. Otherwise, well, it's a free-for-all, isn't it? So make sure you go and do that. All those positions are in the game. And in 3 weeks' time, we'll be back with you here at the Coaches Panel, walking you through not only the predicted new positional gains, but eventually announcing the new round as we head out of round 6. Hey, good luck in round 4 with your keeper team. I hope it is going well for you. I hope you've had a 3-0 start on the platform. If not, fingers crossed it changes for you next week. Hey, we'll chat to you soon. Thanks so much for tuning in.